Okay, Chris, I'm going to count you in, starting with 5, and the last 2 will be silent. And before we begin, we ask everybody to video and audio. Thank you. And 5, 4, 3.
Welcome, everyone. We're celebrating our birthday with the county. How exciting. Today's got a great speaker. We've got Kevin Dayhoff, who will be speaking with us a little bit about our great birthday celebration. So that's going to be a special treat. We also have Richard Turner with us, who is working with the CMC as our great partner. So we will be recording today. And that's why we're asking for the microphones to be out. We're going to have a drawing for a cake from Starry Night Cafe, and it's only for participants. So that's going to be a live element at the end after the presentation. And we're going to ask that you save your questions for the end of the presentation. And for many of you, you kind of know the drill. You go down to the bottom of your screen to the participants, and you have 2 options. You can type your question in on participant chat, or you can raise your hand and we'll recognize you, and then you can click your audio and you'll be allowed to speak. But I kind of like using the chat and writing down my questions during the presentation just so I don't forget them. So those are 2 ways at the end of the presentation that you can ask questions. So with that, I'm going to introduce our speaker today. Kevin Dayhoff is no stranger to giving presentations for the Historical Society. In the past, his presentations at the annual birthday celebrations and box lunch talks have included such things as celebrating 250 years of Westminster, Maryland history, celebrating the history of Belgrove Square, come lose your head over the history at the Oddfellows Hall, and murder and mayhem in Carroll County. In January 2016, his presentation for the annual Historical Society's birthday celebration was on the life and times of Colonel John Clinkoff Longwell from 1810 to 1896, a newspaper publisher and advocate for the creation of the Carroll County in January of 1837. Kevin has been self-employed artist, writer, and a farmer since 1974. Since 2004, he has written for a number of national and local publications, including the Baltimore Sun. He currently writes for the Carroll County Times. He is a member of the Society of Historical Journalists. Needless to say, he's a lifetime member here with the Historical Society. His family has lived in the Carroll County area since the 1600s. He was born and raised in Westminster and lives in Westminster, Maryland with his wife, Carolyn. And Kevin, will you take it away?
I love questions, so save your questions for after the presentation, and that'll be a lot of fun. I'd like to thank everyone for coming together today to come to the annual Carroll County birthday party. This event is a time-honored tradition that many of us really look forward to every year. The topic for this year's birthday celebration is one of my favorites. This year's subject for discussion is the legacy of the Six Nations pre-colonial government in Carroll County. I might note at this point that most of us are much more familiar with the term Iroquois instead of Haudenosaunee. For the purposes of this discussion, we will consider the name Iroquois to be the same as Haudenosaunee. Before July 4th, 1744, the predominant form of government in Carroll County was the Six Nations Haudenosaunee Confederation. Subsequently, after the colonials won their independence from England, the Haudenosaunee played a key role in the evolution of American democracy. It was not until after the Treaty of Six Nations was signed on July 4th, 1744 with the Iroquois, and the dispute over the Mason-Dixon line was settled in 1767, that folks started to come to Carroll County in greater numbers. Much of our current way of life is owed to the heritage and the legacy of the Haudenosaunee Nation. Several main roads in Carroll County have their beginnings as Iroquois trading routes, and several towns in Carroll County, Patapsco, for example, had their beginnings as Iroquois settlements. The Algonquin Native Americans were the predecessors of the Iroquois and the Haudenosaunee. They arrived in the eastern section of what we know today as the United States as early as 9500 BC. It is believed that the Algonquins arrived in the Carroll County, Maryland area and farther north in the northeast region of North America around 800 BC. The original Algonquins divided into a number of distinct tribe nations, which formed a multi-nation government under a constitution that dates to around August the 31st, 1142. The Algonquins called themselves the Haudenosaunee, meaning people of the Longhouse, and their government was one of the first true participatory democracies in history. It also incorporated full political and leadership rights for women. As for our colonial forms of government, from 1659 to 1837, the eastern half of Carroll County was located in Baltimore County. From 1695, Prince George's County governed the western portion of Carroll County until December the 10th, 1748, when Frederick County was formed. In fact, when the property White's Level, which later became part of Westminster, was first purchased in 1733, it was actually a part of Prince George's County and the Haudenosaunee Confederation. Throughout Carroll County's history, we have faced many challenges over our roads, schools, agriculture, and financial resources. We have had many different forms of government, and through it all, we have faced our challenges by coming together, rolling up our sleeves, and getting to work. As an aside, folks have asked me what form of government that I would prefer. And of course, since I'm an ardent royalist, I have often wondered what our life would be like if we had remained part of the British Commonwealth. Historically, my family were Quakers. They were assigned to the Carroll County area of Maryland around 1696 under the auspices of the King of England, King William III of Orange, right after the Glorious Revolution in England on November the 5th, 1688. According to family oral tradition, our family helped King William and Queen Mary prevail in the English Civil War. And right after the death of Queen Mary II on December the 28th, 1694, we were sent to Ireland as part of the Englishification of Ireland. Subsequently, we asked to be reassigned to the New World in North America. We became several generations of teachers at the Friends Quaker School in Union Bridge. We stayed. We can't go anywhere unless we're ordered by the current Queen of England, and she has not been in touch as of late. As for my favorite form of government locally, I guess I would prefer the Bees Coffee Shop participatory form of government. The era of Westminster's greatest generation mayor and council lasted from 1961 to 1985. In those days, almost every morning, many of the city council members, along with Carroll County and Maryland state officials, would get together at Bees Coffee Shop. It's pictured here in a file photograph from 1978. Bees was located where a Lorden's Irish pub can now be found in the old stone building on Liberty Street. There, they would go over the day's events, meet with citizens, and deliberate upon pressing issues. Having an opportunity to talk with elected officials was easy back then. This approach to government has its roots in that of the Haudenosaunee Nation. But since we're talking about the history of government in Carroll County, I have always been intrigued by the Iroquois Haudenosaunee Native American form of government that predates our colonial form of government. From about 800 BC to approximately 1867, the boundaries and configuration of the Six Nations, the Haudenosaunee Confederation, constantly changed. This map depicts the hypothetical makeup of the Confederation from around 1500. The Haudenosaunee Constitution was divided into 117 articles. In the American Constitutional Convention of May through September 1787, the basis for the federal system of government advocated by Benjamin Franklin and Jefferson and Thomas Jefferson was based on the Haudenosaunee system of government and its 117 articles. There is evidence, for example, that both Jefferson and Franklin used materials delineated in a famous speech made by the great Haudenosaunee chief in 1744 at the signing of the Treaty of Six Nations. The Algonquins, the very first Native American settlers in the Carroll County area, hunted deer and moose for food. They also planted crops such as corn, squash, and pumpkins. In this illustration, we see Iroquois women grinding corn or dried berries. One of the earlier configurations of government of the Algonquin Iroquois Native Americans was the Five Nations from around 1650. They lived in long houses, which were about 150 foot long, 20 foot wide, and made of poles sided with bark. While each family stayed in their own room, they shared a fireplace in the hallway. Many families lived in a single long home. Getting back to the name Iroquois, the French term for the Six Nations Confederation was Iroquois. The original Carroll Countians spoke one of the many dialects of the Algonquin Iroquois linguistic family of North America. The first predominant European language in Carroll County was German. The use of English came much later. The Six Nations form of government came together at a later time in history for the Algonquins, and it consisted of 6 different tribal nation states. And those next 6 nations that had come together for the Confederation, they extended from Labrador all the way to South Carolina, and of course through Carroll County. It is interesting to note that the Iroquois were a matriarchal society. That is a society that was run by women. Women owned all the property. They were also in charge of the farming operations. And as a matter of fact, Iroquois men moved into the house of his wife's family after they got married. Many historians to this day credit the multicultural, multilingual, participatory democracy as exemplified by the Haudenosaunee Nation to be the inspiration, the true inspiration for our system of government. They had nothing to work with from Europe at the time. It was the Haudenosaunee Nation that showed them the way to form a government. At the 1763 Treaty of Paris came almost 20 years after the signing of the Treaty of the Six Nations. This signaled the Treaty of Paris in 1763. The Treaty of Paris signaled the end of the North American portion of a global war between France and England. That is the French and Indian War of 1754 to 1763. Subsequently, the American Revolution from 1775 to 1783 was one of the last pieces of the puzzle enabling settlement in Carroll County that was relatively free from violence. As a matter of fact, Westminster was not founded until 1764, 1 year after the end of the French and Indian War. Just 2 years later, in 1785, citizens petitioned Maryland Governor William Paca to form Paca County from parts of Frederick and Baltimore counties. The effort failed. In the November 25th, 1813 edition of the Engine of Freedom, a newspaper in the Forks, later known as Uniontown, there appeared a petition that was forwarded to the Maryland General Assembly that requested the legislative body form Union County, which and they wanted to make Uniontown the county seat. The effort failed. On March the 2nd, 1833, a bill passed the Maryland General Assembly authorizing a vote to form Carroll County. The vote took place in October 1833. The vote failed. After the Great European Famine of 1789, most of the agroeconomic structure of Europe had collapsed, and France went into years of governmental instability, which resulted with the rise of Napoleon. It is during this period that vast acreages of Carroll County's woodlands were cleared for land speculation and farms. The Secretary of State at the time, Thomas Jefferson, wrote that he regretted the likelihood of war, but we must console ourselves with the good price of wheat which it will bring us. Carroll Lee's History of Carroll County, The Legacy of the Land, notes that wheat nearly became a bonanza crop in Maryland, which offered prospects for a quick fortune, and it further fueled farmland over speculation in the Carroll County area of Maryland. Accordingly to Lee's legacy, American wheat and flour had an important role in the Napoleonic Wars. It is here in history that America began its long journey to become the breadbasket of the world, and Carroll County was in the middle of all of it and flourished in spite of the horrible condition of the roads to market. However, this land speculation led to the recession of 1837, which crippled the nation just as everything was going so well. Lee's history, Legacy of the Land, reports evidence of development appeared everywhere. The total assessed wealth of the county was $6.8 million. But by the 1843 local newspaper carried an average of 20 insolvency notices per weekly issue. Part of the problem at the time was the terrible condition of the roads. Getting from the Carroll County area to either Towson, the county seat of Baltimore County, or Frederick City, the county seat of Frederick, was extremely difficult, which prompted more calls to form a separate county with a centrally located administrative government in Westminster. Finally, a bill was introduced in 1835 and passed the Maryland General Assembly on March the 25th, 1836, to form Carroll County. This act was confirmed on January 19th, 1837. It took only 50 years, but Carroll Countyans had finally changed their form of government. This was not the last time that changes in the global political and economic climate caused changes in Carroll County's form of government. It wasn't until the Mexican War began in May of 1846 and the California Gold Rush began on January the 24th, 1848, that the nation and Carroll County climbed out of the 1837 Depression and into a series of conflicts that many of us historians glibly call the road wars. Transportation was still key to marketing, and the overcrowded county roads were still in terrible condition. Citizens' petitions to the county commissioners constantly complained about the hard, circuitous routes we are obliged to travel. Of course, many of these roads were originally Native American walking trails, not necessarily suited for wagons. Baltimore had become the main canning center for supplying food for the California miners. For Carroll County's farmers, these economic forces brought incentives to expand agriculture. The county commissioners could do very little about the road conditions until the general economy improved and the form of government changed. From 1837 to 1851, the governing body of Carroll County was called the Levy Court. It consisted of 9 individuals, one from each of the 9 existing election districts in Carroll at the time, and they were appointed by the governor of Maryland. The Maryland Constitution of 1851 changed the Levy Court to the Commissioners of Tax. And from 1853 to 1891, there were 3 at-large commissioners elected to 2-year terms. Meanwhile, Carroll County celebrated its 50th birthday on April the 11th, 1887. This photo shows a large float traveling in a parade on Main Street, just west of the railroad crossing. From 1893 to 1921, according to Charles W. Albert's excellent reference book, Carroll County Election Results, 1837 to 2000, the county elected one of its 3 commissioners every other year for a 6-year term. After another transition in 1926, the county went to electing 3 commissioners to 4-year terms. Since the late 1960s, barrels of ink and acid have been spilled over the discussions, the hand-wringing, and gnashing of teeth over what is the best form of government in Carroll County. In recent history, one of the first organized efforts to bring charter government to Carroll County took place around 1967. In full disclosure, I played a minor research role in that effort. And I also served on the Committee for Charter Government in the 1992 effort to change the form of government. But listen to this. In 1968, voters in Carroll County rejected both charter government and Code Home Rule. In 1984, Code Home Rule was defeated. In 1992, charter government was defeated at the ballot box. In 1998, voters rejected a referendum to increase the Board of Commissioners from 5 at-large members and rejected a charter form of government. So it was then on December the 8th, 1999, that Delegate Don Elliott brought the 5-commissioner idea back at a joint meeting of the county's state delegation and commissioners. On November the 2nd, 2004, the voters of Carroll County approved the idea. On November the 5th, 2020, after more than a year or so of discussion, Carroll County's Board of Commissioners tabled the idea of switching from being governed by a commission form of government to a charter form of government. At that time, the county commissioners voted 3-2 against forming a committee to write a charter for a potential change. No worries, this is not the first time that folks in Carroll County have tried to change our form of government, and chances are it will not be the last. It usually takes about 50 years. So in less than 30 minutes, we've gone from the 6 Nations form of government to the county commissioners form of government with 5 commissioners. And at this point in time, I will be happy to answer any questions. Let's play Stump the Historian. Thanks.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much. Of course, I get to ask the first question or two while people are thinking about their questions and either putting their hands up or in the participant chat box putting their questions in. I have to ask just a real basic question. The 7 Years' War is the same as the French and Indian War. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's pretty much correct. It's called by different names in different parts of the world. There's also the 30 Years' War that's involved in that also. Interestingly enough, when I was in college at Elon College, I had a professor who taught the American Revolution from the English point of view, and it was quite a very different war looking at it from the English point of view.
Mm-hmm. So now here's another question. Maybe it's a little personal. I know you so well. I guess I feel like I have a right to ask it. But this is a different kind of history. This is sort of a history, not so much of famous people and valiant acts, but of kind of the evolution of government. What made you interested in this?
That's a fair question. I'd have to put some thought to that. It's in one of the earlier slides. I've actually been writing history since 1963. And I have a picture of one of my very first pieces that I ever wrote. I don't know, because I've written about this in the past. It's called the Great Person Theory of History. And I tend to refer to myself as an economic historian because I believe well, first of all, I believe that history is the recollection of events that ought not to have happened to begin with. And often it's the inaccurate recollection of events. I mean, how many of us were taught that the basis of our form of government in Carroll County was actually the Haudenosaunee Nation, the Native American form of government? I don't know. I tend to be a bit of an economic historian, and I'm not necessarily a fan of the great person theory of government or a theory of history.
Well, okay, I have another.
I'll put some thought to it.
I'll dive into a little deeper. I want to know, you talk about the role of taxes and how horrible the roads are, but how did they tax people? Was it based on property or on goods? We know income tax is fairly recent.
Yeah, income tax is what, 1912. I think there were a series of federal excise taxes, and I think there was also a property tax. As a matter of fact, my farm is on the 1798 federal tax records. My farm dates back to 1748. I think that's another fair question. I think there were property taxes, and I think there were federal excise taxes. We did not have income tax. That wasn't until 1912.
Okay.
That's another topic for further research. I'm making notes.
Well, that was supposed to be an easy question. I'm so sorry.
No, I don't recall. I don't recall. And interestingly enough, I mean, part of our corporate psychology of Carroll County, with the emphasis on security and public safety and the emphasis on taxes, is as a result of that's how they marketed Carroll County after the end of the French and Indian War. They said the taxes weren't that great, and it was safe to move here.
Wow. All right. So Kevin, I do have a question from Tom. Tom asks in the chat, do we know where the Iroquois or Haudenosaunee who arrived in 1800 BC came from? Also, what was the population of the Six Nations at its peak, for example?
I don't know the population of the Six Nations, and I think that's a great question. Much of the Native American history is oral. It's not written, and sadly, some of it we've lost over the years. The Algonquins came to the eastern seaboard as early as 9500. I'm not sure. I think the date 800 BC. I think it's a bit of a convenient date because I can't imagine that they all showed up on 800 BC. I think it was a gradual migration from much more to the south. I mean, I think the other fair question is, what was the origin of the original Algonquins in 9500 BC? I think is a really fair question, because that's not consistent with a lot of history that we're taught. I mean, I'm not sure that they came across the Bering Strait. So I'm kind of fascinated by that. A lot more research needs to be accomplished with this topic, and I'm looking forward to it.
Tom follows up, and he asked, does the HSCC have any artifacts of the Six Nations in its collection? And I'll have to answer that for you, Kevin, because in fact, we do have early Native American artifacts and have had them on display every once in a while. However, we don't have any on display right now, but what we do have is we have a traveling trunk. And this trunk is available to schools and homeschooling students. We rent it out for like $30 a week or something, but there's one that we have that just focuses on Native Americans. And if anyone was interested in renting that out for a Boy Scout talk or renting it out for school or whatever, you can contact us. So that's my answer from the HSCC. Are there any other questions? Lynn, do you see any hands up that I'm missing?
Chris, there's one question that was sent over to me, and that was looking for more history of the Deep Run gold mine. And I'm not familiar with the Deep Run gold mine. I am familiar with the Silver mines, but I'm not familiar with the Deep Run gold mine. So that's another great topic that I can't wait. I'm looking forward to researching. And anybody who has follow-up questions, I've written 2,500 articles for the Baltimore Sun. I'm always looking for neat stuff to write about, and a lot of my stuff are assignments from readers. So if anybody has any additional ideas of things that you would like to hear about, or that you would like for me to write about, just email me at kevindayhoff@gmail.com, and I'll really look forward to your comments and suggestions.
Well, I have one more comment from Wendy.
Yeah.
Do we know why we followed some of the Haudenosaunee laws, but did not follow the ones about women being in charge?
I don't know the answer to that, because Carroll County is a matriarchal society. Agriculture in Carroll County is very matriarchal, and I've always understood that was from the roots of the Haudenosaunee Nation. I don't know that answer. I think that's certainly a challenge that we've had to overcome. Women had full voting rights in the Haudenosaunee Nation, and women chose the chief elected officer for the Haudenosaunee Nation. So I don't know why we didn't follow that.
So we did not really get women's voting rights until the 19th Amendment. And we do have an exhibit called Breaking Barriers that is available, although the museum's not really open to the public. Just drop in. You can make an appointment and come and see that exhibit and see how Carroll County participated in the 19th Amendment. I also have something else I want to just share with our viewers. The book that you talked quite a bit about, Carol Lee's Legacy of the Land, we have that in our gift shop for $19.99. If anyone would like to order that, we can do curbside pickup. So although our shop is not open to the public, we are doing a very brisk sales in books in online pickups. So that's one of them. Just write us and we will make arrangements for you.
And
so if there's nothing else, I would like to.
It's a great book.
It's a great book. It's a nice one, and we
have
it
a lot
right
of great
here.
history in it.
We have that history right here.
And you know, Chris, I might take this opportunity to mention that much of the personality and character and quality of life that we enjoy as Carroll Countyans is as a result of Mary Boswick Shellman. So that only exacerbates, you know, why is it that we did not follow more of the positive examples of the Haudenosaunee Nation with our form of government.
So I have one last chat question. When were the colonies in Carroll County? I think that means when were we a colony in Carroll County? And I think the answer would be until July 4th, 1776, right? With, you know, with the
Yeah, I'm not
revolution.
sure. I'm
Chris,
not,
it says the Kanoi. Is that a tribe of some sort? Kanoi?
yeah, I'm not.
The
I'm
guy
not-
who asked this could come on and give us enlightenment, please do.
Hello. This is the origin of the question. I'm referring, and I was under the impression that the Kanoi was the proper pronunciation, but were a part of the Native American families that lived in and around Carroll County at one time.
There were a number of subsets, and that's the constant source of fascination. I had a question earlier about the Susquehannock tribe. There were quite a number of them, and I tell you, every time I read more about the history of the Algonquin Native American First Peoples, I find more tribal names, but I must admit I'm going to look forward to looking for Kanoi, but I'm not familiar with the term. I'll look for it.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
So we
question.
have
That was a good question. Chris, do you want me to go to the next one?
I have another question that says, when did the Germans immigrate to Carroll County, and how was their settlement received by the Native Americans?
The German one of the most interesting things about Carroll County is northern Carroll County was settled by southern Pennsylvania folks, the Pennsylvania Dutch that came down, and they were from Germany. That northern Carroll County spoke German, southern Carroll County spoke English, and then there was western Carroll County, which was Irish and Scotch. And they came, the first settlement in the first house by Europeans in Carroll County was 1715. It was the Belt House, and it was English. But I would say there's much more research that needs to be accomplished, but I would say glibly that it was the 1740s or the 1750s that the Germans came down from southern Pennsylvania. As to how well their settlement was received by the Native Americans, I think in a word, not very well. I don't think they all played very nicely together at the beginning at all, and that's one of the tragedies of our nation's history.
All right, do we have any other questions? Because from my seat, I don't see any more. Kevin, do you have any that they sent you?
No, I love the questions, though. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity. This is one of my favorite topics. I've talked to a lot of historians over the years that are not aware of this history, and it needs to be taught. We need to know much more about it. It's a great tradition. It's a great history.
All right, well, we're going to pick up with the rest of our program. We're going to sing happy birthday to the county. We're going to do the drawing for the cake, and the cake has been drawn by participants today. And I have a few announcements afterwards. But if everybody would like to click on your audio, we can sing happy birthday all together. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do that.
I'll do it.
Do we
Chris,
have
Jim
Jim?
Leitner is going to sing it for us, and I've asked him
fabulous?
to mute. So here he
Am I on? Am
Yes,
I on?
you are on. Yes.
All right, I'm going to ask everybody to mute. Please mute, not unmute.
Okay, we're not going to sing. You sing. We don't have.
I'm going to sing and everybody's going to sing along with me at home. And
Okay.
if everybody starts their video, we can watch everybody sing.
All right. Very good.
If we don't
do
mute,
that.
we will have cacophony. I've been there before.
All
So
right.
mute, but turn on your video.
And Jim, if we could see your video, that way we can see you sing as well.
Yeah,
I
Jim,
will
can you
turn
put
mine
on
on.
your video?
I wasn't sure who was doing what. Okay, now you can see me and everybody else we can see, but we can't
And
hear
if
you.
everybody turns on their video, they can put on the gallery view and see each other.
Right. This won't take very long, but everybody sing along with me at home. Okay, everybody ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Carroll County. Happy birthday to you. Now you can turn it back on.
Wonderful.
Okay, I had my microphone off.
Very good.
Very good, Jim. Thank you so much.
Well,
Happy birthday to everybody
birthday
here in Carroll
party.
County.
yeah.
All right, so I wish I had a pre-recorded drum roll because I do have the name of the winner of the cake from Starry Nights Cafe. It's Richard Mancini. Is Richard there? Mr. Mancini, are you on mute?
I am now not on mute. I am unmuted.
You are the winner.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Thank you.
We have a gift certificate for you for Starry Night Cafe. You can stop by the main office, make arrangements with our office as to when you might want to come and get it.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Mancini. Congratulations. All right, I do have a couple of quick announcements.
Also, Chris, there is a chat follow-up.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Oh, let me take a quick look and see what our chat follow-up is. So we have a cannoli, also the Piscataway or the Algonquin speaking people of Northern American Indian tribes related to the Delaware and the Nanticoke before colonization by the English. They lived between the Potomac River and the western shore of the Chesapeake Bay in what is now Maryland. Early accounts suggest that their economy was based mainly on hunting and the abundant game and fowl of the area, using bows and arrows and spears. And they lived in oval-shaped dwellings, a lot like the longhouses that Kevin had behind him during the speaking. Thank you. Now, who was this who sent this to me? Russell
Dick.
Dick. So I appreciate you doing that little bit of research on the Conoy.
Oh, okay.
All righty. So I do have a couple of quick announcements I want to go through. We're trying something new this spring called the virtual winter wine tasting. It'll be live via Zoom on February 13th, day before Valentine's Day. And we'll hold it at 4 o'clock. And what'll happen is that you'll get your wine and a little bit of snacks in advance of the event on February 13th. You'll be able to link in via Zoom and we'll do a wine tasting. And I think although we can't all be together, this will be a very fun way to do a wine tasting. Bernie Vogel is going to lead the wine tasting. So he'll do our presentations and help you through the taste testing. You'll need to register with us before February 5th so we can have your packages all ready for pickup down at Genie Bird. We're also going to do the same event on the 14th in March with different wines, but the same Bernie and same Genie Bird providing wine and snacks for our taste testing. I recommend you get online and go through our online registration process. It's really the easiest, or contact our main office for that wine tasting. And our next box lunch talk is going to be done by Bert Kemerow. And it's Amidst the Mischief and Misery, the story of 3 famous Civil War caregivers. I have to say, talking about historic caregivers in the Civil War couldn't be more appropriate to today's situation and how many caregivers we have out there. That talk will be on February 16th at 12 p.m. It'll go from 12 to 1. It'll be another Zoom meeting just like today. So it will be our BLT lunch talk for the month. Again, that'll be on February 16th. I want to thank everybody for attending. I really, really appreciate Jim for doing our song today. And I I wish you all the very best until we get together again. Thank you very much. From the Historical Society of Carroll County.